Hi Mum, you do everything for everyone else. Let me help you make your life easier. Quick, short information to make you empowered and remind you why you are so important. Because if you don't know what's on the menu, how can you choose what's right for you? Hi, I'm Alina, Director of my private practice Supportive Therapy, an everyday Aussie mum trying not to lose my biscuits at my kids. As a mental health professional, I'm here to share my secrets so no other mother feels alone or powerless. Knowledge is power, and I want you to be powerful. Think of it like I'm your mindset coach through all of this. Everything is backed by science and psychology. I believe in you, and I want you to be the best version of yourself. To be happy and to feel in control, you need to be mentally strong. Hi everyone, welcome to Mentally Strong Mums. My name is Alina Bishop, and this episode is about teenagers. Okay, so depending on where you're at with your children, it's interesting because sometimes people, when they have little kids and people have teenagers, they're like, how hard can it be with a teenager? Especially when you're with a little child that needs you 24/7, you can't get away from them, you've got to manage all of their needs. Your complete sleep deprivation has increased and exacerbated all of your symptoms. I've probably got postnatal depression, postnatal anxiety. It's negatively impacted my relationship with my partner, right? But when you're on the other end of the spectrum, when you've got teenagers, even though they might not be those exact situation that you're going through with an infant or a toddler or a three-nager, right? Or a terrible two situation, or even twins and triplets and all of that kind of multiple stuff. When you've got a teenager, it can kind of elevate all of that. That can also then mimic and have the same stresses as all of that other stuff when they're very young, such as the worry, the conflict, the tantrums, the pressures on the romantic relationship with your partner, the difference in attachment styles or parenting. What I should parent this way. I should be more understanding and relaxed. No, you need to be more harder on them and put up boundaries and have hardcore consequences. So sometimes it's very difficult if we've got different parenting styles, or we have anticipated what's best for my child, or how do I deal with it. There's even those things like, well, that was what happened to me when I was a teenager and I turned out fine. Look at me. Give them some tough love, whatever that looks like, you know? So also with the sleepless nights, and then when you're dealing with teenagers, even though they sometimes might speak like an adult, they're not an adult. They're still children. The way that their brains are, they're not fully developed. They don't have the capacity so boys are about 25 and girls are about 23 before it all finally develops, where they can have critical thinking, where they can understand consequences, where they're able to be present and regulated, where they are able to problem solve correctly, right? So that's why a lot of the time you, instead of saying to your teenager, what were you thinking? They haven't completely developed that ability yet to have the thinking. That's why they sometimes do reckless things like jumping off of roofs on skateboards, because they don't understand consequences. Their brains aren't adult brains yet, so they're unable to be able to have that thinking and that awareness, right, until they're older. So that's also very, very important to understand, that if you're going through this phase of a teenager or a young adult, they're unable to be able to think critically or understand consequences or problem solve correctly, right? Because that's that their brain isn't there yet. And so that needs to be a really important understanding with all of this. So sometimes it feels like, because they're going through all of their hormones as well, this is the first time they've ever done this. Sometimes in school and their friends are their everything, or everything so intensified, as well as everything being exacerbated by social media, the way that kids can contact each other, the way that alpha mentality sometimes arrives, and that's sometimes how bullying kind of happens. And then if they're on things like Snapchat, how they disappear and there's no evidence of what happens. So the other person, there's no accountability for when they're constantly doing this to your children, right? And so Sometimes teens then express their pain through anger or defiance, or even sometimes withdrawal. So that can be very difficult for a parent as well, because all you want to be there is for them. But if you're constantly up against this wall of anger or defiance, or you're trying to talk to them and they're completely withdrawn and they don't want anything to do with you, that's very confronting and triggering for a lot of people, because then you get back into your phase and you can then be defiant and what's all of the stuff, right? So understanding that what's going on in the adolescent brain and young parent brain, it's not personal. It's actually got nothing to do with you per se, but it's what they're going through in their life and how they're trying to be able to navigate it on their own, right? So it's also understanding as well how to be their secure base for them. So that secure attachment is no matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter how you act, whatever happens, I will always be here for you and I will always love you no matter what, all right? We can choose good behaviors and we can choose bad behaviors. But whatever you do, I will always still love you and I'm always here for you. You are not too much for me. Because sometimes even as adults, I will have clients that come in and they say, I'm too much. Or people don't understand me and I push people away because I'm too extra. Or I can't be my true self because that was always frowned upon. You are never too much for me. I will always love you no matter what, okay? I will always be here for you and you can be as whatever you want in front of me and that won't judge me. Whether if you want to be goth in front of me. If you're spicy because you're neurodiverse, be spicy in front of me, right? Whatever that is, if you K-pop and you want to do whatever you want to do, I will always be here for you, okay? All right? Understanding how also your own unhealed teenage wounds might be triggered. Because honestly, if your teenager is acting in certain ways that when you were a teenager, you were not allowed to do, you were not allowed to say, you had to conform or suck it up or stop crying or harden up, have a spoon of concrete, children are seen and not heard. If your child is doing that, that will then trigger you as for you to go, that's not safe, you're not allowed to do that, what are you doing? So then you will then mimic the same things that your parents or your caregivers or your teachers said to you. Because for you, you weren't allowed to do that, and that's an unhealed trauma wound for you. So that when your child then does that, that triggers you and it makes you nervous and it makes you scared. So you go, don't do that, don't do it, please don't. And you'll do everything to be able to try and get them away, right? As well as understanding sometimes that in terms of a timeline of ages, when your children are teenagers, you might even be going through some perimenopause or menopause stages. And so if you're already dealing with emotional turmoil or hormonal turmoil or depression or anxiety, or there are 32 symptoms if you're perimenopause, okay? And how that can change everything. So if you feel like you're already drowning in your own body and then your teenager is having some drama, but in your perception, it's not real world drama, because in my world, real world drama is paying the bills, getting to work, managing my children. Like if your relationship isn't hanging by a thread, is it even a relationship, right? How do I manage all of this stuff? So when your teenager comes to you and they're catastrophizing because their friend called them a name, you will then go, that's nothing. What are you complaining about? You got nothing. Get away from me and stop wasting my time, right? Because of everything that you're going through. You accidentally doing that because you're overwhelmed or because of your hormone changes or because of the way that you're burnt out or whatever that looks like, that then causes a rift where the child, because they're an adolescent, because they're always a child, okay? Even though they age every year, they're still a child until they're about 25, okay? The child then feels and learns very quickly that you are not safe to come to when they've got a problem, okay? It might not be a problem to you, but in their little world of being alive on this earth, it is a huge problem to them. And they're trying to be open and vulnerable when you don't see them and you accidentally invalidate them. And we're going to have the next podcast will be on validating versus invalidating, if you don't know what that looks like. It can be very, very damaging for your child because they don't see you as safe. They don't see you as someone I can talk to. They will then hold, and that's when all that anger, the defiance, and their withdrawal comes from. And then all of these things have happened, and then you go, why didn't you tell me any of this was happening? And they go, well, I tried. I gave you, they were fishing. They gave you low entry situations to see how you would handle their stuff. And if you didn't handle it well, they're not going to go to you with high level stuff. No. Do you know what I mean? So because they're so little as well, they're unable to regulate and self-soothe and calm themselves. So you then have to be that person to help them do that. But if you can't do that yourself, you can't do that for your kids, right? So it's almost like we need a new compassionate blueprint for parenting for yourself while then parenting your teen or young adult. So it's very, very difficult. It's a whole different set of stuff, depending on what it is. And so even that episode that we talk about generational legacy, I'd obviously advise for you to go back and listen to it if you haven't already. That's a very, very good, important one to be able to be implementing through all of this stuff too. So even those times when you're a teenager, they slam the door and then you freeze, because then that triggers you. Maybe you yourself feel like you're hanging by a thread or you're burnout. You're then holding back all of those tears of rage because it's so overwhelming and you're burnout and you can't add anything else to your plate, right? Knowing that you're still the adult and you're still their mum and you're still their parent. So how can you actually be there for them, right? So in reality, because of even for me as a therapist, social worker, counselor, I won't generally have anything professionally to do with someone if they're under the age of 25, because I know the way that the brain develops and I don't want anything to do professionally with youth just because it's so tumultuous. The brain hasn't developed. They don't understand consequences. I then get too emotionally invested in their healing, or I get too emotionally invested in their treatment or making them better or trying to relieve something. So, and then when everything changes, that's a professional boundary for me because not always, I'm the one that gets hurt. So a professional boundary, because I understand the human brain, when I work with clients, I prefer always for them to be over the age of 25 because under the age of 25, the brain hasn't developed, so they need a person who specializes in children. So even if you yourself were going to get your child therapy or counseling or a psychologist, even if the child is 22, 23, I would still advocate for you to get a child specialized psychology or someone who specializes in children because of the way that the brain hasn't been developed yet, right? So that's a very, very important one. If your kid wants to talk to someone, make sure the person is specialized or an expert in children and they know children and youth brains because they're very complex and all the stuff, right? And so it takes a special person to do that. And I don't have the capacity at this stage to do that. Do you know what I mean? And that's also understanding our limitations. But for you as a parent, as a mum, that also is huge for you to understand that even though they look like an adult, they're not. They're still a child. So you've got to be able to be there for them at their level with what they're going through. So these teenage meltdowns is not bad behavior. They are always requests for connection. There's this saying that I always have, and it's attention seeking is not attention seeking. It's actually connection seeking. But if they don't know how to get the connection properly, sometimes it looks like attention seeking. So these teenage meltdowns are not bad behavior. They're connection seeking, right? A request for connection, but they don't know how to do that because they're still learning, right? So their brain is still under construction. And when you react, instead of actually being there to respond, you then miss the opportunity to become their safe space. So it's all amazing for you to understand and differentiate between when do you react and what does it look like when you respond. So even for me, taking accountability for my kids, sometimes I can be drowning. I've had a huge day. I'm in the middle of dinner. The dog's just done something and I'm losing it. My phone's gone off, and then the kid will come to me for something and I accidentally react or overreact, right? And then I see their little face and then I feel awful. Okay, so now I have to be able to ground yourself, turn the stove off, to put the phone on silent, get that bloody dog outside, right? Find the kid that I accidentally made upset because I reacted or overreacted. And then I go back for responding. So there's this thing by the Gottman Institute revamped it. It wasn't their original concept, but it's rupture and repair. So if you can see me on YouTube, it's essentially like a little volcano, and a rupture is conflict. A rupture is something uncomfortable. A rupture is a meltdown, anything that's not nice, right? Which is inevitable in life. Ruptures are the things that cause trauma and upset and disconnection. If you're able to come back and repair it, so what that looks like, if this is a volcano erupting, going off and pulsating, if you're able to come along as if you're a cloud full of snow that just covers the volcano and calms everything down, that stops trauma, that rebuilds connection, that makes everything right in the world again, okay? So then in that situation for me, if I saw my little kid's face, I would then turn off the stove, put my phone on silent, kick that bloody dog outside. I would find the kid that I accidentally overreacted to. I would then go to repair them and respond to them. Hey, mate, I overreacted. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Are you okay? Whatever they have to say next, respond to it. Okay. Can you please tell me what you were trying to say? At this time, I promise I'll be here for you and I won't interrupt you. So at the last session, we said, do you need comfort, solutions, or silence? So do you need some silence and I'll just talk to you and I won't interrupt and I won't try and fix it and I won't cuddle you so you can get through it. Okay, let's go. Do you know what I mean? So that's what that process looks like. And if you can do that, give yourself a schmacko afterwards, because it's very, very hard to do. And sometimes it can be very confronting as well, because you then have to take accountability for what's going on and pause everything in your world. And sometimes, as I said last time, when you feel like we're always in that tunnel going forward, sometimes we can't see what's actually happening around us because of our mental load, all of the tasks I have to do. Sometimes I feel like I'm alone, and how difficult the reality of that is, right? So coming back to teenagers and how whittle they are, they're still so whittle. Even though they might be taller than you, they're whittle brains, right? Where their forehead is, so the higher forehead is the prefrontal cortex or the frontal lobe. That's the decision making. Not fully developed. Girls 23, boys 25, right? As well as their hormonal shifts, depending on if you've got girls or boys, but they're still going to have them. Boys have surges in testosterone, which sometimes look like frustration and defiance. Women have those hormonal shifts when they've got their period and they're menstruating. So that's also understanding for you. You need to know the 4 stages of what the hormones look like: luteal phase, ovulation, all of that, so that you can then help them understand and educate what's going on. Our cycles, I always use, our cycles are like the cycles of the moon. There's 4 different stages, and every time it happens, it's like a clear out, and it's really beautiful. But in every single stage, it's different. If you are on contraception, that will also be different. It will show up differently in you versus if you're not on contraception, then that will also show up differently for you. So understanding and learning your body through hormones. But if you don't understand your own hormones, then you then can't explain that to them. Therefore, you're not a safe space for them when they go, oh, I've just learned about the luteal phase, or what's ovulation? Because then if you won't do that, then they're not going to be there for you, right? And obviously with these hormonal shifts, you're going to get dopamine, cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone, which can sometimes then increase mood, volatility. It will increase anxiety, all of their stuff. So it's a really difficult time for them, right? As well as their amygdala. So the higher stuff of the brain's at your forehead. The amygdala is more at the base of your brain. And that kind of fear, freaking out, flight or fight, arguing, panicking, anxiety, all of the stuff, that then sometimes dominates, obviously, as opposed to logic, right? So that's why it's exhausting for you, because you literally have a little terrible two again that you have to walk through everything with. You've got to be very patient with. You've got to teach them how to use a spoon again, but in terms of emotions. Do you know what I mean? So when you're triggered, whether you're going through perimenopause or you're burnout, or you've got multiple children, or there's something happening in your relationship, you can then easily be triggered by your teenagers, right? So if you feel helpless when your teen loses it, especially if it's on the daily, that could also then be your inner teenager screaming as well, right? So if you think about it, back in the day, depending on how old you are, right, many mums were not allowed to feel big emotions as teenagers yourself. I definitely wasn't, and it wasn't the culture back then, right? So emotional invalidation in your own childhood then may resurface, right? So there's this thing called you need to reparent yourself. So if you were almost to float your memory back to when you were at the age of your child is now, so just say 15, what did you need in those moments? What did you actually need to hear? What did love look like to you from your parents? What did you think that you were missing? Right? All of these things, as you as that child at that age that your child is now, the one that you're talking about now, if you can go back and figure out what you needed, so leave your adult self over here, hop back into your younger self, your child self, understand what you needed, and then be that for your current offspring, for your child, so that you can connect to them on their level at their emotional needs, as opposed to sometimes your current self as a mother with an ego that needs to be able to do X, Y, and Z. Do you know what I mean? So that can also be a really interesting exercise, because when you reparent yourself, you then reheal yourself and you understand exactly what you need, and then that can help you understand what you currently need. All right? So there's this thing called mirror neurons, right? And emotional contagion. So it's really, you can always do experiments with mirror neurons. If you're standing in front of someone and then you cross your arms, give it a couple of seconds and the other person will cross their arms. If you then look up, the other person that you're talking to will inevitably always look up, right? It's the way that attachment and mammals, we need to be able to show that we have solidarity and we're together, right? So with those principles, if you're able to be calm, they will then eventually be calm. But if you are chaos and all over the shop, you don't know if you're Arthur or Martha, your chaos then becomes their chaos. And then everyone's dysregulated, and then you get upset at them because they're not calm, but you're Burko, do you know? Losing your biscuits. And obviously sometimes that happens. Like me, it sometimes happens. But if you're able to understand and recognize what's happening, especially in that other episode we did with a little wellness and safety plan to know what it looks like when I'm starting to lose it, how are you able to then be self-aware? Because actually I am the adult. I should know better. I am the mother. I should be there for them. They should not be there for me. They should be able to be safe to be who they want to be and act the way that they want to be. I can then be there for them, be their calm. Yes, I can enforce my boundaries. Please, I'm not your punching bag. Do not speak to me that way. If you want to be disrespectful towards me, I haven't done anything wrong. I love you. I haven't done anything wrong. Please don't speak to me that way. If you call me another name, please, I'm going to have to leave and I'll come back when you're being respectful. So you can still put up boundaries. You don't have to sit there and cop all of it. So it's that beautiful fine line with understanding and that generational legacy. Moving forward, I need to be calm. I need to be regulated. When there's a rupture, like a volcano, I need to be that beautiful snow that comes down and calms everything. But if you are being disrespectful or you're saying awful things to me, or you're calling me names, I'll give you a warning. Please don't do that for me. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm trying my best. I'm here with you. Please, I ask you, don't call me that name. If you do that again, I'm going to have to leave until you're respectful. No one deserves to be spoken to like that. I don't speak to you like that, do I? No, I would never speak to you like that. So please don't speak to me like that. We're a family. We don't talk to each other like that. That's also important for you to be mindful, because with teenagers, monkey see, monkey do. So sometimes the way that you or your partner speaks to your child, they will then say that back to you, because they're like, well, if I'm an adult now, double standards, why are you treating me like a child? You call me blah, blah, blah sometimes. I'm just doing the same thing that you do to me. Do you know what I mean? And then you don't have a leg to stand on. So that's really interesting as well about respect and how do we speak to each other in our own home, right? So coming back to those mirror neurons, to be able to mirror that calm and that peace, right? Being able to then regulate yourself. If you need a minute, go and have a minute, get calm. If they're triggered because of them, or you're triggered because of your childhood, or you're overwhelmed because you're burnt out, take a minute and then go back always, right? You can only teach regulation and calm and peace by embodying it yourself and by doing it, right? Kids know when you're all, do you know what I mean? We all know each other, right? They don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be present. There's no such thing as perfect. And if this is the first time you've ever done this with a teenager, it's not going to be perfect. That's impossible, right? So there's a book which I love, Dan Siegel, Siegel. He does amazing research on co-regulation and interpersonal neurobiology. And there's a book, The Mind of a Child is Shaped by the Relational Experience of the Parent. It's a good one, isn't it? You're like, enough, Alina, enough. We're almost there, because this is it, right? We then need to be able to create a new blueprint moving forward for you. So if your blueprint or your template was always your mum's, and that didn't work out very well, and you weren't a happy teenager, you need to be able to figure out, if I could be the mum that I wanted to be, if I could be the mum that I wish that I had when I was, what blueprint or template would that be? Having a look if anyone in your real life embodies that, and then mimic that, or take little bits and pieces off other people. You could even do things like, if you like Bluey, if you had little kids, being chilly, or different elements of chili, right? Or even if you watch certain movies and you really love them and the way that they do things, embodying that as well. What things can you draw upon from people, examples, whether they're real people or your parents or their cartoons or their movies, that you now want to be your blueprint? So when your child, when your teenager is not having a good time, instead of repeating negative cycles or doing things that you don't like doing, you then be able to stop, pause, and insert the new blueprint for you on your own, because you, mum, are the best parent for your child, okay? So you might not be perfect, but you are the best mum for your children. You might not be a good mum for other kids because they've got their other parents, but you instinctually know your children. You instinctually know what they need, right? If this has also been triggering for you, get therapy and talk to someone about this. Listen, my teenager is triggering the bejesus out of me, right? I think it is because of X, Y, and Z. I need to be a present parent for them. But every time they get upset, I have a physiological reaction or anger or shutting it down. And I think it's because I was never allowed to do that. So when my child does that, that means that it's not safe for me, right? So you're not raising a miniature version of you. You are raising a whole new person. And it starts with learning to love yourself through all of this mess as well. No matter what you're going through and they're going through, don't minimize them. Listen to the next episode about validation and how to do that, right? And how we accidentally invalidate people sometimes. So offering love and perspective and affirmation. Sometimes just be honest. I've never done this before. I don't know what to say to make things better, but I'll be here to listen to you. Is there anything I can do for you? Do you need anything from me? Ma, I just want to cuddle. And you'll go, I can do that. Do you know? Sometimes if you say, I don't know, but I won't give up, but I'll always be here for you, but I'll always listen to you, but maybe we can figure this out together. But maybe we can go see an expert and they can help us figure out what to do. Wouldn't that be nice if you heard that when you were little? Do you know? And if you did hear that, you're very, very lucky, you know? All right. Well, have a great day. Thank you for listening to me. Good luck with your teenagers out there, mums. Do you know what I mean? We're all in this together. Have a good day. I'll see you soon. Bye. If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, I want to thank you for your support. It takes me hours to research and create this for you, so I genuinely hope you enjoyed it and felt more mentally strong. If you have any suggestions or improvements, let me know, because I'm always open for criticisms. If you have found my information useful, please leave a review and subscribe. So by leaving a review, it's a value exchange. It's good karma. I value your support just as much as you value my free information. So find me on Instagram and Facebook by searching Mentally Strong Mums, and I'm Aussie, so we're spelled MUM. And then you can find heaps of resources on www.mentallystrongmums.com. And this podcast is for you. So let me know what topics you would like to see covered in future episodes. And if yourself is a professional that is working with mums and would like to be a guest to help other mums be mentally strong, I would love to support you. So message me on Instagram on Mentally Strong Mums, MUMS, all one word. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day, you beautiful mum.